Alright folks, welcome to another beer review, and recording this on the night that Everton got absolutely twatted 4-1 by Bournemouth, and then we've got to face them again at the weekend. So don't think Lampard's going to be around much longer. Goes against everything I believe, because for the longest time I just fell out of football because of the politics, the fact that managers were getting sacked without really being given a chance. But yeah, it's just not working tactically. Some really questionable decisions, but do you know what? It is what it is, and what it is what it is. So that's probably made a lot of people turn off. Well, I say a lot of people, I don't get a lot of people watching these beer reviews, but anyway. So to somewhat drown my sorrows, we're going over to Rivington and we're looking at the third and final instalment of the Evil Dead series. And this is, of course, the third and final beer, Army of Darkness. And this is a chocolate cake Imperial Stout at 10%, brewed with cacao, molasses, coffee and vanilla, brewed in collaboration with Track, two absolute behemoths in the craft beer scene at the moment, and they have been for a little while actually. So the third and final instalment of the Evil Dead 2022 series, an Imperial Stout in collaboration with our mates at Track Brewing Co., brewed with cacao, molasses, coffee and vanilla. It's a shame that they're not actually saying who the coffee has been provided by. I mean, they did on their, they always do on their, what's it called? Something Void Space. Oh my God, I can't even remember what the coffee roasters they brew those beers with. But yeah, I do, as I've said it pretty much every time I've done a coffee beer, I've praised them when they've actually named the coffee roasters who they've worked with, and then I'm like, oh, it's a shame that they've not mentioned the coffee roasters. But anyway, so I reviewed the other two beers from this year's Evil Dead series, did a bit of a live stream on that one, so if you want to see what my thoughts and opinions were, then I welcome you to go check it out on the channel. But yeah, so I just felt like having an Imperial Stout. It's been eyeing me up, well, someone's got to, since I bought it. I bought the set that came with the glass, although I'm using the Track snifter glass for this one, from Northern Beer Temple in Wigan. Links down below. And if I can find any information about the coffee roasters involved, then the information will also be included in the description. I'd like to think it's the same people they do the Enter Void Space, what's it called, which was a beautiful coffee stout, which is again uploaded on the channel. So yeah, we shall see. Anyway, so bit of a scruffy kitchen, but it is what it is, and you can clearly see where my tits are, so anyway, shall we just shut up and get this open? Hopefully this will help me sleep. So, massive fan of both Rivington and Track, and we all know Track can brew some wonderful Imperial Stouts. When they did those birthday barrel-aged bottles, my God, they were good. Wouldn't have usually put down the money for something like that, but I think a few days prior I'd won a pretty healthy football accumulator, so I thought I'd treat myself. But yeah, beer in the glass then, and it's looking very nice indeed. Neon jet black, just shy of 2 fingers worth of a beige looking head. Certainly looks the part. I always loved the way stouts look in glasses like this. So let's see what we get on the nose. Well, first and foremost, it's chocolate. There's a little bit of like a sort of vanilla flavour creeping through. Always reminds me of those cheap like vanilla mallows covered in a thin layer of chocolate. Can never remember what they're actually called or like notable brands who make those chocolates. And for some reason I'm doing weird head gestures. But yeah, it's primarily for me coffee. There's a very gentle roasty malt aroma coming through as well. I mean, you've heard me say this time and time again. Where's the ABV on the nose? You're just not picking it up at all. But it smells really damn good. It's got like an essence of like a classic, no frills but well brewed, like Russian Imperial Stout. The adjuncts are there, but they're not screaming out of the glass. So rather unassuming. So we'll see what it's like when we give it a taste. And this is pretty much straight out the fridge as well. So we'll see if that dampens the drinking experience. Anyway, cheers, folks. The first thing that I really like about this stout, considering it's got adjuncts in there, it's not got like a really big gloopy mouthfeel. I mean, it's not thin by any stretch, but it's got this satisfying, like, subtle velvetiness, as opposed to being like a big chewy gloopy sort of like pastry stout. Although it's not really a pastry stout, is it? Would this be defined as a, could this, oh sorry, who am I apologising to? I've just apologised to my glass for nearly spilling beer out of it. There's this satisfying flavour coming from the culmination of the roasted malts, the coffee and the chocolate about just before the finish. Because it's got a nice bitter finish, but there's just, I don't know, there's this really sort of like burst of roasty, sweet, chocolatey, nutty cakiness. The vanilla is not too strong. I think they've just used the perfect amount of vanilla just to give it a little bit of subtle sweetness, as opposed to it being like a predominant flavour, which can get quite sickly. It's one of those Imperial Stouts that's robust, but not too overpowering. Like, there's like intense notes in there, but it's not like smacking you across the face. And it does take me back to like really sort of like old school Russian Imperial Stouts. I think one of the like defining sort of examples of when a craft brewery makes that sort of beer for me is something like Even More, is it Even More Jesus by Evil Twin? Now, it's been a hell of a long time since I've had this specific beer that I'm going to reference. But there's something very familiar with what I'm drinking now that takes me back a fair few years to a brewery that I wish we saw a hell of. In fact, I've not really seen any beers from this brewery for a while. But this is reminding me. And don't include this in the beer review, right? Don't let this sort of like what I'm about to say. Take this with like the tiniest or biggest, whichever's the more effective analogy. Take it with the biggest grain or the smallest grain of salt. But for some reason, God, I'm building this up way too much. Excuse me. This is taking me back to how I felt when I had the one and only time the chocolate Yeti. Was it called chocolate Yeti from Great Divide? Where that, I remember that at that time, my palate was a lot more, it was getting used to these sorts of beers. So it would probably been a bit more intense for me back then, drinking that, than it is now, because a lot of beers, especially Imperial Stouts that use the likes of coffee, cacao and blah, 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 blah in there, you sort of like get used to that. And it's really hard. You could have like the hypest Imperial Stout, the one that's like everyone is just saying you have to drink it, where it's like, yeah, it's beautiful, but it's very familiar and it doesn't have that wow effect that it would have the first time you were trying those sorts of beers. I'm not going to go back into the way back when machine and watch that video of the chocolate Yeti that I did, mainly because I was a little bit slimmer back then. Not much, but a little bit slimmer, noticeably slimmer for me. So that'll depress the shit out of me. It was also when I was living in Germany, which will definitely depress the shit out of me if I revisit that. Plus, I think my girlfriend at the time like made a joke in that video, so it was wholesome. So definitely don't want to watch that video. But if you want to, go look it up. The more I'm drinking it, the more that chocolate is coming out. And it's a genuine, not genuine, genuine chocolatey flavour. And it marries up perfectly with the coffee. I say that though, then again, it's not described as a coffee Imperial Stout, it's described as a chocolate cake Imperial Stout. So, just abandon that train of thought because you don't know what you were going to talk about. Chocolate cake? Yeah. Maybe somewhat syllabare, Cilla Black, surprise, surprise. That doesn't sound like Cilla Black at all. But something like Siren would make with like Caribbean. What's that? I just can't think of anything right now. But yeah, it's beautifully brewed, and I think my main point with this beer review is I love like obscene, like gloopy, sweet, decadent pastry stouts that just basically bastardize what we know about an Imperial Stout. I love those beers. I mean, some of the American stuff you can get hold of that make their way to UK shores, they are the masters of those sorts of Imperial Stouts, in my opinion. Like they are with the sort of like a stupidly insane like pastry sours. American brewers brew those two specific styles, just, they're untouchable for me. And what I like about this, as much as I love those types of beers, this isn't that. This is, it's not reserved, it's not toned down, it's just, it's got a little sense of sensible maturity to it. And if you are a sort of person who would describe a beer having a sensible maturity to it, then quite frankly, you can jump in the sea. The closest thing I have is something called the River Tord, which is just a trickle through wooded areas running through Skelmersdale, where loads of like companies are pouring chemicals into there, but that's a different story. But I can't believe I said it's got a... anyway. It's big, bold and flavoursome, but it's not stupid, it's not silly. And it's got the perfect amount of everything. It's got that sort of like claggy, lingering like aftertaste you get if you were to like dip your finger into some molasses. It's got that richness there. The roasted malts with the coffee character work beautifully. The chocolate or the cacao adds a genuine chocolatey flavour, which I think is extenuated. It doesn't matter what the word is, with that vanilla. And it just works remarkably well. And I think it's absolutely terrific. And it's drinking stupid. It's got like, if they ever made a dark chocolate milkshake, but it was a little bit, not watered down, but didn't have the texture of a milkshake, then that's what it tastes like. And I really want more Imperial Stouts that taste like this. Like, this is what I would imagine, because at the time I wasn't, you know, really too into this whole scene. But you know, in like Stone, where you could get like these big stupid like Imperial Stouts from Stone, before Stone and Greg Koch, before Greg Koch became a cock. Yeah, it's got this like old school throwback sort of character to it. I'm not making any sense right now. All I'm going to say is, if you see a can of this, buy a few. Because the more you drink it, it starts off amazing, but the better it gets. Yeah. Lovely stuff. Really, really is. Definitely for me, the best of the Evil Dead 2022 series. Closely followed by the double IPA by Chain House. That they brewed with Chain House. Was it Chain House that they did that with? Yeah. And then he did that sort of like, which I think was a little bit of a mishit. That like berry, strawberry, what was it? Like raspberry IPA that they did with Pomona. But yeah. Rivington track coming together and producing an absolute barnstormer of an Imperial Stout. And I've invested way too much of my time recording this video. I've wasted a lot of your valuable time recording this video. But yeah, Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And it just goes to show that you don't have to be. I'm going to stand here behind the can to hide my shame. You don't have to make stupidly silly Imperial Stouts to stand out. But then again, I do love those Imperial Stouts as well. But yeah, this is fantastic. And I'm going to get closer and closer. Go check out Rivington. Go check out Track. And if I can find who's provided the coffee, then I'll put that information down below. I'm ruining this video, but I ruin this video as soon as I open my big stupid fucking mouth, let's be honest. So yeah, thanks for watching. Take care. Check out everyone in the description, and I shall hopefully see you later. And you've got a proper close-up of my grubby fingernails. Yak. And you didn't press the